Fabian was responsible for the figure, the color, and the paint effects that would go onto this. So what we did is we built a sketching machine in the computer which worked like these diagrammatic brushstrokes of Fabians. And we spent 6 months kind of going back and forth thinking about the form of this enclosure in the gallery space. And this is a detail of one of those models. It's about 100 feet long. It's the snake slithers. It's in the Wexner Center in Columbus, Ohio. It just came down. But it was meant to be like a sketch of one of Fabian's brushstrokes at the large scale of the museum. So we wanted it to work with the gallery so that if you came up to the top floor gallery, you'd see this thing kind of looming. But then once you came into the gallery, you'd see the scale of it and really feel kind of captured along the walls. And as you walked around it, you feel pressed against the walls. So these are some of the studies. I mean, you'll see fairly major variations in the form between each one of these studies. This is an example of 4. We would send these to Fabian in New York. He would overpaint on them, send them back, and we'd reconfigure them kind of back and forth. And in the end, we settled on this particular volume, and Fabian produced a special digital painting that was about, again, 100 feet long that we could map onto this surface. So we defined the figure of this kind of three-dimensional paint trail. We then mapped the painting area onto it and started to think about materials, and we wanted it to be translucent plastic so that you would sometimes read the form in plastic and other times read the painting like a kind of like a Chinese lamp or like a painted illuminated lamp. Now, because of that project in Stockholm, I wanted to get the texture of the painting onto the form of the surface. So we first took this form and broke it up into little panels. You can see it's like filleting a fish. We skinned each one of them into panels that would fit onto a 5-foot wide machine, and then we broke them into panels so that we could mill them out of a 1-foot depth. And we then gave Fabian this unfolded pattern, and to his horror, he had to take this 100-foot long painting and anamorphically map each one of his painting panels to fit on each one of our pork chop shapes, so that when we put all of these pieces together, his image would be continuous. So this was technically a kind of an anamorphosis to get this flat image to these complex curves was one of the main technical achievements of the project. So you can see his painting broken up into all of its respective pieces for the panels. And these are the panels nested onto 4-foot by 8-foot sheets that we cut with the computer-controlled mill. Then before with maybe a month to go on the project, we had the idea of taking some details of his painting and mapping them on the form at key locations, and turning that pictorial image into relief on the surface of the form. So that instead of being this slick, smooth form, we got these 3-dimensional kind of impasto brush strokes all across it that were maybe 3 inches in relief, so that the pictorial color image got mapped onto them, but also 3-dimensional surface pattern got mapped onto them. And then when we took this into the computer to generate the cutting paths, we could have the drill basically move around on the surface like a paintbrush, so that it moved with the same pattern as Fabian's brush, just digitally translated into a machine code. So I think there are some details. And you can see these vertical ridges in the plastic are from the tool, but these horizontal strokes to unify the panels and make these large-scale brush strokes on it were where that tool jumped and bumped around and started to move like a paintbrush. So we're really trying to use a piece of computer-controlled technology, with a stroke, which was the stroke of an author rather than the stroke of a machine code. And these are just various areas. This is probably, where these 3-dimensional strokes work with painting is probably one of the more successful areas where all those things came together. And then Fabian came back in with paint and silicon, which is his kind of signature, and started to pull the printed, these were all digitally printed panels of plastic that we formed. He would start to pull those pictorial elements out into silicon back again. So he went over and spent a week just painting the 3-dimensional painting again. Yeah, there's a perfect example of it. And the tapestries that we put in it, these shreds, came from the house research, where instead of punching windows in it, we really tried to use the surface topology and just expand the splines to make openings, which we cut into it. And at one point, you could get inside and walk around. Right there is where you can walk into it. And we put the painting on the inside face so that it would be a little bit opalescent when we did it from the outside, but then it would be very intense with paintings on the interior. And that's it. Thanks.
Within the context of this wonderful idea of sketching that goes across all the fields, it's fascinating to me that
having been engaged in architecture in the morning and now in literature, we changed substantially because, for the most part, there's no relation at all between an architectural drawing and a building except conceptual. They don't look alike. For example, the plan of a building is something that can't exist in reality. It may help a builder to make a foundation, but there is no plan there to see. In the case of literature, and I may be even contradicted here, one moves from words to words in the sketch and in the ultimate solution, and the difference being that the way in which the words are presented to the world differ from time to time, printing having created a major difference, and the change from speech to reading creates a major difference too. As you have been reminded before, there's a change in the printed program. The fourth speaker, Carlo Ossola, is unable to attend, and in his place, Peter Marshall will introduce his exhibition on the print. We have then four speakers as originally planned, and I would like to mention something that's perhaps inopportune, but I think you should know that the organizers have told me that numerous women were invited to speak, and their absence is not due to an oversight. The first speaker this afternoon is Shane Butler, who is the one individual in today's program who represents the new and future successful generation. I'm sure he's well on his path. He's an assistant professor of classical studies at the University of Pennsylvania and was awarded his PhD at Columbia University last year. From 1997 to 1999, he was the holder of the Phyllis Gordon and Press Foundation Fellowship of the American Academy in Rome. He is the author of The Hand of Cicero, the written space of Roman oratory, published this year with London, or about to be published in Routledge. The subject of his talk this afternoon is Roman rough drafts and literary self-consciousness. Welcome, Professor Butler.
Well, after that shocking revelation, I will try to live up to the promised virility as best I can. There are a few visual aids for my talk, only a few. There'll be 2 slides that we can have whenever we start, but there's also a handout that I think should be on your sheets. So I'll make reference to that a little later in the talk. If I could have the 2 slides now for just a little while, and I'll turn the lights back on, or turn the lights back on. What legend holds to be the tomb of Marcus Tullius Cicero stands about 2 kilometers east of the modern beach town of Formia, which lies on the site of ancient Formiae, a little more than midway down the coast from Rome to Naples. That's it on the left, and an interior view on the right. The structure consists of a large square stepped podium made up of sizable rectangular blocks, surmounted by 2 cylindrical drums, one on top of the other, the top one narrower and taller than the one below. These 2 drums of the tower are not exactly concentric, so that they resemble vaguely the end of a badly rolled papyrus roll. And indeed, this impression is strengthened by the interior of the monument, seen on your right, dominated by a tall, untapered column that rises through the middle of the round space up to the vault, as if it were the ride around which our roll was wound. This probably was not the intended effect, nor, archaeologists tell us, is this certain to have been Cicero's tomb. But pretending for a moment that it was, one has the impression of stepping directly into a giant posthumous Ciceronian publication.